Hey friends, welcome to Your Story Matters podcast. My name is Michaela, and I am so happy you're here. My hope for this show is that we experience the power of storytelling and understand that we are the main characters in our story so that we can live as our truly authentic selves. You're in the right place to hear real stories that will challenge, inspire, and encourage you on your personal growth journey. I hope you enjoy. Today on the show is MJ Cassese. MJ is a mindset expert for women entrepreneurs who run wellness practices and want their business to reflect how capable they truly are. She helps women identify and rewire the subconscious patterns that drive overthinking, self-doubt, and hesitation so they can move forward with clarity and confidence. Her work is deeply personal. For much of her life, MJ lived with high-functioning anxiety without realizing it. After discovering rapid transformational therapy, her perspective shifted dramatically. Once she cleared the subconscious patterns driving that anxiety, her entire life and career changed. That experience helped her to help other women experience the same freedom. Trained in rapid transformational therapy by Marissa Peer, MJ combines RTT and hypnotherapy to uncover and remove the subconscious blocks that keep women stuck. Over the past 5 years, she has helped hundreds of women settle their nervous system, gain peace of mind, and finally move forward in their businesses with confidence and ease. Based in Cleveland, Ohio, MJ works with clients around the world through private Zoom sessions. Outside of her work, she enjoys golfing, cooking, spending time with family, and hanging out with her golden doodle. Here's our conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Your Story Matters podcast. I am so happy that you've taken time out of your day to spend it with me. And I am equally, if not happy, to be spending time with my new friend and fellow Ohioan, MJ. MJ, welcome to Your Story Matters.
Thank you.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
We always just start real deep on the show. We just dive right in. No fooling around here. Big overarching question that we always ask is, MJ, what is your story? Take it away.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm trying to think where to start. As my mom used to always say, give the Reader's Digest version, and some of your older listeners might know what that means.
Yeah.
So not to be too long-winded, but so growing up, Irish Catholic family, youngest of 6, parents divorced when I was 13 years old. I had 2 sisters with chronic illness. They suffered from cystic fibrosis. So growing up was stressful. You know, we didn't have a lot of money. So stress and anxiety was my norm. And so fast forward to I'm, in my late 20s getting married, and my mom gets diagnosed with terminal lung cancer and dies 4 months before my wedding. And while that's going on, my dad had a horrific injury, fell off a roof and was paralyzed from the waist down 4 months before my wedding. So there was not a lot of calm in my life. It went from the childhood trauma of things of worrying about my sisters who were sick all the time and hospital visits and all that good stuff. And your parents who are just, trying to raise 6 kids and 2 kids that are ill, and I'm kind of the youngest, kind of fending for myself, which seemed fine at the time. I always say I raised myself, but I think I did okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, all these tragedies happened. Okay. So it just kind of all morphed into like every time the phone rings, I would imagine it's going to be bad news, because it was always bad news. And the funny thing was I just had this conversation with one of my siblings the other day. He said, I saw that you called, and, we talk, but not every day, and maybe once a week or twice a month, whatever it is. And he goes, I thought, I better call her back. Something might be wrong. And I said, that's how I used to feel all the time. Like just waiting for the other shoe to drop, because that's what my life was. So that's kind of the backstory of, I'm trying to get to where my life was filled with anxiety, but because I just kind of lived in this bubble, I thought that was normal. I thought catastrophizing and worrying constantly was normal. So I get married, I have kids, that's a worry in itself. And so just getting through the motions, and it wasn't until my daughter was maybe middle school, getting close to high school, that she came down with really bad anxiety. And I wasn't even really familiar with that buzzword that started to come out around then, at least in my world. Like, everybody's got anxiety. And I know a lot of it's fueled with social media and all that good stuff. But I was brought up, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get through it. Like, there's no time to be held back by anxiety. You just, this is life. Life is difficult. Get through it. And, too bad for you. So, but the next generation doesn't think that way. And of course, now as a mother, I was not going to let that go. And anybody who's listening, or maybe you've experienced this, if you know anybody with really bad anxiety, they're not the only one that suffers. Everybody in the family suffers. It's like walking on eggshells 24/7, trying not to upset the apple cart, especially with a young teenage girl, which you're doing anyways, and now it's even worse. And that sort of like was, getting me a little bit, angry, I guess, because I was like, what? Just be okay. But she didn't know. And so anyways, it continued on. We did the usual stuff. We did the therapy, the medication, the self-help books, the diets, you name it. And in all of this, the poor thing, she got so bad at times that it started to manifest itself physically. She started to lose her hair at one point. We were in the emergency room for stomach issues. She one time passed out on the volleyball court. It was just one thing after another. And I was kind of like, is there something physically wrong with her? This can't just be anxiety, because again, anxiety was just inbred in me. I thought that was just normal. Like, you're supposed to worry. You're supposed to catastrophize. That's just how everybody's brain works. And so she's suffering through all of this. And again, like I said, we went through everything. Now she's in college, and it's the point where I'm like, maybe you ought to you're 5 hours away. I can't drop everything every time and come get you. I did it as much as I could, but it got to the point where like something's got to give here. Well, when all this started to come to a head, and don't get me wrong, she had good times, but the anxiety kept coming back, kept creeping back. She'd have a couple of good weeks and then it would rear its ugly head again. So we came across a lady in our community who did rapid transformational therapy under Marissa Peer. And my husband ran into her in an office setting, and somehow anxiety came up, and he mentioned that my daughter had anxiety, and she's like, oh, I can help her. And he came home and told me, and I'm like, I'll do anything. I don't even care what it is. I didn't really know much about it. I had a conversation with her. I'm like, if you can help her, then great. I don't care. Just at that point, I was throwing darts at the wall because, as most mothers can understand, you do everything for your kids. It doesn't matter because you just want them to be okay. And she wasn't. So she gets the session. And about 2 weeks later, I started to really notice a change in her. And I was like, don't say anything because you don't want to ruin it. Don't,
Right.
so it was just kind of crazy that the transformation started to come through her. And so I was gently kind of saying, and she's like, Mom, I think I'm really starting to feel better. And I'm like, well, let's fingers crossed, let's hope so. So she goes back to college and she does her thing and she just continues to get a little bit better and a little bit better as time went on. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we did all of these things and in a few hours and, over time, because she had to listen to her recording and all that, she's way better. Like she's functioning. Yes, she still has anxiety. She's a college kid, that's normal, but not like she was. So I was like, I need to figure out what happened to her or what she went through because this is really cool. So I started to study RTT and I went down the rabbit hole and I never came out. And that was 6 years ago. And so the funny thing is, looking back now, I didn't realize how bad I had anxiety until I started to learn about all of the things that you learn when you study this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the one who had it so bad. And I probably projected it onto her unknowingly because I was always worried about make sure this is perfect, make sure you're okay, don't do this, don't do that, just, hovering, and in retrospect is it's easy to look back and say what you would have done differently, but it kind of was like an awakening for me all of a sudden. I was like, oh my gosh, so this doesn't have to be the way I think. I don't have to like worry about every little thing and constantly feel on edge and all that good stuff. So not only did I learn so much, I healed myself in the process. And going from one side to the other was like, I'm two different people, but in a good way. I'm still my goofy self and like to have fun and nothing changed. But in my mind, I'm so much calmer. Things don't faze me like they used to. I don't get triggered when I clean up the kitchen and my husband comes home and leaves a dirty dish in the sink where normally that would have gone from, I just cleaned up. He doesn't, he has no respect for me. He doesn't care about me. And then down the rabbit hole of he doesn't love me, all of those things. Right. And that's just where our mind goes. That's just kind of how our subconscious has been programmed from childhood, is because your mind's always trying to protect yourself. So it just kind of steers you in these horrible directions. So learning all of that has just been a game changer for everybody. And now I can talk to my daughter on another level. And instead of getting down the anxiety, I can pull her out of it pretty quickly. So just to kind of give you full circle of what happened, she is now she's about to graduate. I'm sorry, this gets emotional. She's about to graduate from Ohio State Dental School. So she went on to college and went on to she'd be a doctor in 2 months.
Good for her.
Yeah. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Had we not found RTT,
Yep.
there's no way she'd be where she is.
Yep.
And she is the most outgoing person you ever want to meet. I mean, she's just a fabulous human. And I have to credit all of this to RTT. Now, that's what I was working a full-time job when I started to study this, and then thought, oh, I know so many people who could use this now that I'm cured. I could help my siblings and my family. Of course they don't want me to touch them, but it was a good thought. Anyway, so now I help women in wellness because we're all kind of cut from the same cloth. We all want to help people. We want to, show people that there's another way to live. You don't have to live with the stress and the anxiety and the overthinking and the self-doubt and the constant inner critic and all of those things, because once you can kind of undo what's been done in our childhood, and I'm sure you've done a lot of this kind of stuff on your show, but it's not your fault, and it's no one's fault. As a parent, as a child, it's just happens. Our minds are still developing. We don't know how to deal with things. It could be a coach, a teacher, a sibling, a classmate, that says something that we take internally, because as children, it's never the other person's fault. It's always ours. We just absorb that. And then it just gets stuck in your subconscious, and it comes out in all these different ways as adults. And sometimes it's harder to undo that than others. I mean, there's a lot of surface level work, conscious level work, but I really feel getting into the subconscious is where it's at. So, I'm a subconscious strategist now, and I just live and breathe everything subconscious because I think it's so cool. And I just have expanded my world and learned so much, and continue to learn because there's a lot out there. And just help people, because I think everybody should get to the point where I feel like I'm at, where I just don't worry about stuff like I used to. I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not worried about being judged. And a part of that, don't get me wrong, part of that comes with getting older, because you're like, I don't give a, hoot, I'm too old to care about this stuff. But a lot of it is also, not trying to be perfect, trying to be something you're not, just being yourself. And it's just so freeing and so easy. And yeah, so I'm going to take a pause here and let you interject. I think I've talked a lot here.
No, that's perfect. As I tell people, this is their show. I'm just here to facilitate and press the record button. No, that's brilliant and such a beautiful picture of life. Thank you for sharing. Shout out to your daughter. And shout out to you, honestly. Just want to honor you in the fact that, we didn't give up. We didn't let anxiety win. Everyone is plagued with it in some way, shape, or form. I think it is a spectrum. There are folks that are definitely diagnosed with something. Other people have it mildly, and there are traumatic instances that happen in our lives where then it kind of starts, like in my life. And sometimes you have to take medication, and sometimes you just have to change what you eat, and all the things. Medicine and lifestyle can work together. They have for a very long time. And I think also just really caring about the humans in your life and knowing that we just haven't found the thing that works yet, because there is so much. And, a big part of the show, like we talked about before we hit record, is just the power of knowing that we can change our narrative. And that's a little bit of a journey, right? It's not an overnight sensation of like go to bed and wake up and be like, oh, I figured it out. There's some work that needs to happen, right? There are some paths that we need to take that we might not have explored before, like RTT. I've had several folks on the show who are certified in RTT, and it's just amazing the more you look in your mind. Because I was actually talking with my counselor this morning that we have everything we need inside of us to do the thing that we're meant to do, regardless of what that is. And as we'll talk about here, most of it lies in the subconscious, which we are not aware of. Right? Because it's hidden. It kind of needs to be revealed. And so, yeah, we'll kind of open up that can of worms. But again, just want to honor you in the sense of keep going. keep going to find the thing. There's so many things out there, and it does probably get very tiring going from one to the other, and you kind of have to wait. And there's a incubation period, if you will, of experimentalness of, what works, what doesn't. You got to give stuff time, but really just, yeah, knowing what can happen on the other side, especially your daughter's just a beautiful example of like not giving up and finding the best thing for her that works. And knowing that you're transformed and knowing that other people are transformed, because of you, because of your daughter, it's just a beautiful thing. So like the way the ripple keeps moving onward and upwards. That's not how water works. Onward, the image
Right?
the image hopefully was painted regardless of my words. So let's kind of, I want some fun facts about the subconscious. We'll kind of talk about that because a lot of people hear it, they know it exists, but in your, research and as you're, continuing to learn, what are some things about the subconscious that you found surprising or that you hadn't known previously to your work discovering?
Yeah. So great question. Well, your subconscious is what drives all of your behaviors. So 95% of your behaviors that you do come from your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is really just taking direction from your subconscious.
Mm,
So, and people get like the way that works to get into your subconscious is through hypnosis. And so some people get a little bit scared by that, but I always like to use the analogy of you're driving. Okay. You're driving home from work and you're thinking about your grocery list, what you're going to make for dinner, what your next errand is, what you got to do tomorrow, and all those things. And suddenly you pull in your driveway and you don't even remember driving.
mhm,
That's because your subconscious mind took over. And it's just like that. It's like you're in a little bit of a trance. You're kind of in, you're not in your conscious mind, you're in your subconscious mind. Or you're watching a movie and you're totally engrossed and you're totally into the movie, you're feeling all the emotions of the movie. And then suddenly the dog barks or somebody slams the door and frightens you out of it. You're in a hypnotic trance. That's all it is. It's just putting your conscious mind in the back seat and bringing your subconscious forward. And you do that by just getting really relaxed. So you just get in, it's like right before you fall asleep. That's a great time. That's really kind of had that feeling of just like, oh, I'm so relaxed. I feel so good. That's what hypnosis is. And then it just kind of opens up your subconscious to find out what were those beliefs that you formed as a child that are now affecting your behavior today that you don't necessarily like.
mm,
And so for me, it's so interesting because um, just the things that happen to us, like someone may have a really traumatic experience and they come to me and they say, I know this is why I have, I'm a people pleaser or whatever their, presenting problem is. I know this is it because when I was, 5, I was abused and blah, blah, blah. And it's funny because a lot of times that's not really what comes up.
mm,
What will come up is something about being on the playground and trying to join in to play and being told, no, you're not playing with us. And,
mhm,
kids can be cruel and them just internalizing, well, if they don't want to play with me, then I must not be enough.
mhm,
And then your mind is always trying to prove itself true. So it will take that and just kind of like keep you back. And then the next time you try to do something, it'll say, see, I told you weren't enough.
mhm.
And then it just gets reinforced and reinforced and reinforced.
Yep.
And that happens it's so common. So many people feel they're not enough or not good enough for different things. They can say it all day long. You can act as confident as you want, but deep down you feel like I'm not good at this. I can't do that. It happens with, the main beliefs are I'm not enough, I'm different, or it's not available to me. And those are all kind of childhood things that have been embedded. And when you can pull out that incident, say the playground, I'll say, okay, what happened? And then say, how did you feel? And then, okay, so you were 7, but now you're 37. Do you still feel the need to feel that way? Well, no, of course not. If somebody told me I
Right.
couldn't play with them, I'd say, okay, fine, I don't want to anyway, and you would bounce right off of that. So when you can look at it through adult eyes at that specific it's traumatic event. I will call it a traumatic event. It might be a small traumatic event, but as a 7-year-old, that's traumatic. When you can look at it through adult eyes and say, I don't need to believe that way anymore. That's when it shifts. It just your subconscious says, oh, okay, well, let's not hang on to that then. And that's how you can shift that belief. And then suddenly you go about your day and you don't even realize you don't even feel that anymore. Well, a
Mhm.
lot of times I have to go back to my clients and say, well, how are you feeling about this? Like, well, yeah, no, I don't have that anymore. As if it never existed.
Yeah.
Like it's really kind of wild to me how how easily we forget how bad it was. So for me, it's really cool. The subconscious to me holds all the answers.
Yeah.
And how you get there, is it through meditation? Is it through, hypnosis? Is it through RTT or any of those other modalities? Whatever works for you. Like you said, everybody has their own path. Some people are fine with just, the medication or the diets. And yes, you probably part of all of that is necessary because healthy mind, body. I'm a big believer in the mind and the body are really connected, and what goes in is what comes out. So, it's all a big ball of wax. It just depends on where you want to get into there first.
That's exactly right. I love the practical examples of the playground and even driving. That's so helpful to just kind of visualize, and it just makes all of the sense, especially in the Enneagram world, which I come from. And we've kind of alluded to this without really naming it, but there are these things that are called childhood messages that each of the 9 types, there's a specific incident or a specific something that is said by either parent, teacher, sibling, classmate, a friend. And what is just amazing to me is I do my own work in counseling, how much the stuff sticks with you. I am amazed. It almost like it just attaches itself like a leech. And until we start the deep dive of kind of figuring out, okay, why are these pervasive thoughts, still around? Why am I acting and believing and behaving this way in my from something that was childhood? Now, when you mentioned playground, I had a memory of I was probably 9 years old in the 3rd grade, and I had made a really good friend. And I wasn't the kind that had hordes of friends. For me, it was more quality over quantity. And so I had this really good friend, and I remember it was playtime and recess, and so everyone was like jungle jamming, basketballing, doing all the things, and there was a swing set. And I came into school in the middle of 3rd grade because I had been homeschooled previously. And so all the kids had really much established, their friendships as early as, kindergarten, 1st grade. And so my friend and her friend, who she had, years before I showed up, were on the playground, were on the swing set, swinging together. And I will never forget this. I marched right up to them in my little 9-year-old body, and I said, "You can't be friends with her. You have to be friends with me." And I screamed it, right? And then I just marched away. My friend who was so sweet and had such a gentle spirit was like, just a reminder of like, I can be friends with both of you. And she was exactly right. Um, and it was just me kind of getting that jealousy stirred up of like, your attention's somewhere else. It's not on me. And so that's so funny how that kind of sticks with like, yeah, I'm not enough because you found someone else more interesting and I'm not as interesting, or whatever the word is that you choose. And so while that specific it's not the inciting incident of kind of where my subconscious thoughts have taken me, it's just so interesting to realize just small moments like that. And I'm sure people listening can think of their own right now of just how much certain things stick with you. And then
Right.
there almost is just this weight to come off, right? Of doing that deep dive, whether it's meditation or hypnosis or any kind of that thing. And it's just like, oh my word, we can finally be free of this. And there definitely has to be an acknowledgement. So that's my next question. Why does there have to be or not have to be an acknowledgement of the thing we've been holding on to? What does that signify?
Yeah, I would definitely say awareness is the first step to healing for sure. You have to be aware. And I think because when you're aware, then you can look at it like through a different lens, right? So I was just thinking about, think about somebody who is I've been afraid of dogs my whole life. Okay. But a dog could be charging at me and my heart will start to race immediately, like, because the fear of dogs. The person next to me is on their knee and they can't wait for the dog to come up because they're excited because they love dogs. So it's the same scenario, but my mind went back to an incident and they never had it. So being aware of that. So once you become aware, so, whatever you're becoming aware of, whether it's a fear of something or, an incident, then you could say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Like, why am I feeling like, in your instance, why am I not feeling enough? And maybe it goes back to the time, well, I felt a little rejected on the playground from my girlfriend. She was my best friend. And here she was playing with somebody else. I felt rejected. What would happen now? Let me put that in terms of today. Like if someone was like at a party and they weren't talking, would I feel rejected? No, I would just join in. So you become aware and then you start to like feel it really. When you can feel the feelings and let them go, that's when you can start to heal. So sit with that uncomfortable feeling of being rejected. If it happens again, or of feeling left out or not enough or whatever it is you're feeling, and it happens so quickly that it's sometimes you're all the way down the road before you realize why you're mad. But you gotta take a step back and say, okay, wait. Let me think. What was I thinking about? What was going on in my head? What just happened to make me feel this way? And really just sit quietly with it and just become curious. When you become curious, you'd be amazed at the stuff you could figure out. So you feel that feeling of not feeling enough and saying, okay, I feel it. I'm just going to let it come through, whether it's anger, tears, whatever. Let the emotion come through, because as you probably know, when you suppress, down your emotions, they only become stronger. But when you can recognize the emotion and say it out loud, I'm feeling really anxious right now because of this situation. And then say, okay, bring it on. Anxiety, bring it on. It's going to be painful for a couple of minutes, but it's going to move through you. You let that feeling move through you, let it dissipate. And the next time it's lost a little bit of power, and you continue to do that until it loses all of its power. And then you can work through it. It's a long process. But if it's something you can do on your own, I absolutely suggest, even if it's just to make you feel better in the moment, but never suppress the emotions. Let them come through always, because they're trying to get out. They're trying to tell you something. That's the
Right.
whole thing behind emotions. They're not there for any other reason but to tell you something's going on.
Yep.
So deal with it. It's a red flag.
Absolutely. That's so good. Rapid transformational therapy. We've talked a lot so far that it takes work. Go back to that incident, feel the feelings, sit with it, release it. We hear rapid and we're like, great, this is a quick pill I can take. This is a quick something, right? And not everything's quick, but rapid. What is so different about RTT than kind of its other counterparts, or even just kind of similarities?
Right, right. It is. And it's called rapid for a reason, because if you compare it to, say, conscious therapy, talk therapy, you can go for weeks, months, even years sometimes, and you just keep bringing up the same stories over and over and kind of just picking at the scab, right? Like the scab will heal over, you go back, you talk about it again, you pick the scab, now you got the open wound. So when you talk about rapid transformational therapy, when you go into hypnosis, you're going directly to the root cause of whatever your presenting problem is. They say it's anxiety. You go, let's go back to the root cause reason of your anxiety. The scene comes up, we look at it, we reframe it so that there's no longer that attachment as the 7-year-old child. You can let go of that because you're looking at through an adult lens. It's a completely different way to look at it. And when you can let that go and reframe it, which is what we do in the tools that we use, and you do 3 of those scenes. So it's not just one, it's 3 different scenarios. And there might be 50, but it's the feeling is still the same. The belief is still the same. So it doesn't matter how you get there, you're just getting there. And once you can feel that release during this session, we make an audio tape that turns all these beliefs on their head, and it's personalized to that person. So it would say, Michaela, you know, you're more than enough, and all the good things that you needed to hear as a child that you couldn't comprehend,
Mm,
and all the things that are going to help you literally rewire those neural pathways. I'm sure you've probably heard of rewiring and
uh-huh,
refiring.
uh-huh.
So it literally, takes those neural pathways that have the bad beliefs, you break them up, but then you got to reinforce it with something better so that it can't come back. And I hope most of your listeners are old enough to handle this, but it's like when we believed in Santa Claus. As a kid, we had this belief. And then as soon as that belief was broken, you could never go back to believing that it was true. Just like with RTT, you could never go back to believing that you weren't enough because we broke that belief. Those 30 days are reinforcing the new beliefs that we all need to hear that kind of quiet your inner critic. And that is why they call it rapid, because in 30 days, and if there's another belief, it might take another 30 days. Kind of depends on the practitioner and the client. And, I mean, we have money beliefs, we have, not enough. You could go on and on. So it just depends on what you want to get out of the session. But that's why they call it rapid, because 30 days is not a long time when you think about it.
No, no, thank you for breaking that down. That is so helpful. And you mentioned, so, having a session, the 30 days,
And then do we just and you mentioned this with your daughter, do you just keep listening to that audio recording of all of the positivity during those 30 days and after those steps?
Yeah, so it's a hypnotic audio, so it'll put you
Yeah.
back into the really relaxed state, and
Yeah.
the good thing about it is it's only 15, 20 minutes long, it's not like, a really long commitment, and you do it before you go to bed. So
Mm,
you could fall asleep to it because your subconscious mind never sleeps. It's still absorbing all this information. So I've had clients are saying, "I decided just to listen to your tape, like, while I was taking a walk, and I hadn't heard half that stuff on there because they had fallen asleep, but it was still getting embedded, which is the beauty of it." And so, yes, you listen to that for 30 days because your mind learns by repetition. So, and some people will say even longer, but 30 days is enough. 20, I say 21 to 28, but and hopefully they don't miss a day, but if they do, it's no big deal.
yeah.
But even after my daughter, she was, let's face it, you can't get away from anxiety or stress. And we're humans. It's all over the place. But how you deal with it is really the key, right? So when she was having stressful, I mean, dental school is stressful. It's a lot. So she has these tapes that she would just pop in, kind of like a refresher, just to kind of
Mhm.
bring her back down to like get her back on track. And she might listen to it for a day, a week, doesn't matter. But she's got them all at her access, and it doesn't change. You can listen to it now or a year from now. It's still all helpful. It's not, you know. We're careful not to put dates or anything in there, or your marriage or anything, because you want it to be effective for as long as they want to have it.
Yeah, that's good. And this just goes back to kind of a big point of the show, and it's the lesson is coming out in different ways of the power of positive thinking. I think I had one episode that was just dedicated to that with having a guest on, and it's so incredible that positive thinking can not only help the mind with anxiety and overthinking and depression even, but then it also, because you said earlier, mind body are so connected much more than we think they are. They're not just connected by our neck, but there's more forces out there. Just in this sense that like positive thinking, not only does it rewire your brain, and the science behind that is just astounding, but it also helps your physical body, right?
Mhm.
Because with the subconscious and other things, like it lives in our brain, but again, how much it also lives in our body, right? Stress, different other chronic illnesses that come up, tiredness, insomnia, and kind of all of the things. So there is such a powerful message behind really taking control of your own life with, as we said again before we recorded, we can only control so much, right? And you had said
Mhm.
we can control how we think about the thing. We can control how we behave about the thing, how that thought, leads to that behavior because that's what it is. And so I'm always so encouraged when I hear this because it does take work, and the people who are going to do the work are the people who are ready, right? You can't you can lead a horse to water and then it's the horse's
Right.
decision what it does to that. But there's such a reward. And again, it's your whole life that changes. And it might not be, you win the lottery. It might not be this. It might not be that. But as you said, like you think about things different. You're much calmer. How much calmer would society be in today's day and age if we kind of all did that work? As you've been coaching all of these, clients virtually and just, getting to explore so much, you say that you've changed, but any other examples of like how you have changed and what the outlook has been for other people? What have they come back and said to you? Because that's just so important to hear, like other people.
Yeah. And I'll get to that in a quick second, but just I wanted to say the power of positive thinking. I've always, even through all the tragedies and all the grief that I encountered as a young person, I've always somehow been a glass half full. I don't know why, but God blessed me with that. So it's all about your thinking, right? So if the next time you get stuck in traffic, like everybody hates traffic. I don't know anybody who likes it. It's miserable, right? It's
Yep.
horrible. So, but we could be just like, I'm gonna be late, I mean, I don't have time for this. I mean, all these things. You could just turn it on its head. You know what? I'm stuck here. This is gonna be a perfect time to listen to that podcast I've been wanting to listen to, or a perfect time to make that phone call, or, of course, hands free, but the perfect time to just, enjoy myself, listen to some music, listen to a book on tape, make something good out of something bad. And you'd be amazed at how your mood changes. And then, what you focus on, you get more of, right? You focus on negative, you're going to get more negative. You focus on positive, you're going to get more positive. So, okay, I just had to throw that in there. But
Right. That's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. So what I love to hear from my clients, and one of the things that I do, because I had alluded to this before, is I go through a whole list of all of these emotions that we feel, your self-love, your anxiety, your anger, your frustrations, all these things on a scale of 1 to 10 when I first meet them. And then at the end of the 30 days, we do it again.
Mm,
And that really, they're like, oh, wow, I said 9 for that. And
mhm.
now I'm at a 4, And so it's like, because they forget. And I had to learn the hard way, like, I better start keeping track because you suddenly forget how bad you really felt. So that's really rewarding when that happens. And a lot of things, like one thing that comes to my mind is a woman that would really get triggered by other people's conversations. She was kind of an argumentative type person and confrontational and all of that. And she didn't like that about herself, but she couldn't help it. Like, she would just get triggered and just go off the handle. And so after working together, she was like, "Wait, I can't wait to tell you. I ran into somebody at the store the other day, and they're political, and we're not on the same side. And he said something really, bad and everything." And she goes, "Normally I would have gone right back at him." And I was like, "Have a nice day. See you later." She goes, "I got in my car. I was like, I can't believe I just did that. I
Mm,
can't believe I didn't let him pick this fight with me." She goes, "It felt so great to be in control of myself, where before she wasn't in control." And when you're in an angry situation, you say things that you wish you hadn't. There's all that regret there. So she was really happy with the fact that she had the control over that. And another thing that is really interesting to me is people will have maybe aging parents or young children or whatever it is, coworkers, that is just causing them angst all the time. And so they'll want to like work on that. And I said, "Well, we can't change them, but we can change you.
mhm.
That's why you're here."
Yep.
So when they get to the point where they feel better about themselves, more confident, more clarity, more ease, more peaceful, all those things, they'll say, "You know that lady at work that used to drive me crazy? Well, now we're going to have lunch next week." I'm like, "What
Mm.
happened?" She goes, "I don't know. She changed." I'm like, "Oh, really? That's interesting." What a coincidence. And it's not the other person that's changed, it's you and your perception of that other person, which, might be hard to wrap your head around, but it's true. When you change, your whole world changes because you're looking at it through a different lens. And it's really just amazing how that happens. So, again, for me, my whole world, broke open. I was living
Mm,
in this bubble of constant angst and anxiety and worry and all of the things. I mean, I was the worst catastrophizer there ever was. If my husband would leave for work or my kids would drive back to school and I'd hear an ambulance, immediately in my head, I would assume that it was them in an accident and worry to death until I could get a hold of them frantically. And they'd be like, "What, mom?" I'm like, "No, I just want to make sure you're okay." Well, that's just exhausting for everybody. And then your kids are like, "Mom, don't you trust me enough to let me drive back to school? I'm 22 years old," and then it's like, oh, and then a whole other thing goes on. So it was and so now, like, it's weird. And it's not like, I don't know. I want to say that I don't care, but like, I will go hours before I'm like, "Oh, I wonder if they made it back to home," when
mhm.
they live a couple hours away. And prior to that, I'd been pacing the floor for those 2.5 hours, waiting for the phone to ring to tell me that they got home. And a lot of times they get home and forget to call mom and they're busy doing other things. And then I get in a fight, like, "Why did you call me? I was so worried." I'm like, "What are you worried about?" That is gone. Thank
Mm,
God that's gone. The time and effort wasted on stuff that you can't control
mhm.
is amazing to me. And to
Mhm.
have that time back, it's like you know, I don't know. I should probably take up guitar or something because I have like all this extra time that I'm not in my head. So
Just think of all the
yeah,
crafts.
I know. I'm just doing gardening and all of things, but yeah, and it's just so that's just so freeing to not have that constant cloud of worry because you realize you can't control it. So worrying about it isn't going to do you any good, and it's not going to mean that you love them any less. I used to think like, well, if I'm not worried, then it must mean I don't love them. Well, that's not
Mm,
true. You could show your love in so many other ways that's more concrete than that because half the time they don't even know you're worrying, right? So you just you know so for me, that was my biggest thing. I was the queen of worry and just letting that be free. And does it creep back in every once in a while? Sure. And I have to remind myself, stop right there. This is ridiculous. And refocus my attention on something else.
mhm.
And the more you do that, the easier it becomes, the more you do it.
That's exactly right. As we're wrapping up here in this hour, just completely flew by. MJ, what is your next chapter? How do you see your story unfolding?
Yeah, good question. Just living life, enjoying every moment. Going on traveling, working with clients, just being present, in the moment. There's so many times where you do things and you don't even remember because you were so in your head. You weren't really there. You weren't enjoying it because you're somewhere else. You're either in the past or in the future. You're not in the present. So for me, and trying to subtly do that, help my family without them knowing that I'm pushing them more towards that
Yeah.
it's amazing because you just have to plant the seed sometimes. Just plant the seed and just say, doesn't it feel really good to just be out in nature without your phone or without the distractions and just really enjoying it and getting into your own mind a little bit? And when you can do that, when you can take all that clutter and put it aside, you'd be amazed at the creativity that comes through. Ideas are just flowing like a water faucet. For that, I love. I love that for myself. I love that for my clients. I love that for everybody because it's just like, that's a lot better place to be than in the unpredictable future or in the past that you can't change.
Yep, that's so good. MJ, this was so inspiring. You have watered my soul flower. This has been awesome. Thank
I
you
like
so
that.
much for your time.
You're welcome.
This has been phenomenal. So yeah, we will have your website in the show notes as well as the social media links for anyone who would love to get in touch with you. As I think a lot of my listeners are in Ohio. If not, they're all around the world. So the statistics say, but who can say if like 0.2 of Luxembourg actually exists? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't even know how you can calculate that or what even goes into that. But the work that you're doing is beautiful. Thank you for doing it. Your story matters. Thank you for sharing it. And it is important for everyone to know that no matter what we are plagued with the thoughts coming into our head, the experiences that we have had, we don't have to live with the burden of them like we used to. Like there's so much more that is possible. So thank you for allowing us into your life so that we can see what it looks like to be on the other side.
Thank you so much, Michaela. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. I invite you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, give it a rating, and review while you're at it. It really goes a long way. And check out the show notes for all the ways to stay connected with me and our guests. Until the next episode.